All right, we are recording. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Becky, I'll invite you to take it away.
All right. So welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. And I do want to go ahead and get started right away because we've got some really great stuff for you today. My name is Becky Heil, the Southeast District Consultant with the State Library of Iowa, and I have been a longtime member of ARSL. I was past president, former treasurer, and conference co-chair for several years. On the agenda today, I am going to start with an introduction to ARSL and the conference, and then we're going to hear from today's panelists. Today's webinar is just a recap of a few of the ideas that these Iowa librarians brought back with them from the annual conference that was held this year in Springfield, Massachusetts. So in order to save time, I'm going to let each of them introduce themselves as their slide comes up. Once we're finished with all that, we're going to end up with a sneak peek at next fall. And if we have some time, we're going to wrap up with some questions. So this organization was really formed back in 2007 at a rural library summit in Clarion, Pennsylvania, which brought it from a loose-knit group of like-minded people. I mean, there's a group of people who are just sort of meeting. It became, beginning in that 2007, to a nationwide organization which continues to transform itself. I have been privileged to watch it grow from less than 75 paid members into a real presence on the National Library stage with over 2,000 members. Iowa librarians have been really supportive of this organization. Since its inception, there has been an Iowa librarian on the board, and 5 of the 18 presidents have been from Iowa. We currently have 2 Iowa librarians on the board, Jenny Garner from North Liberty and Tyler Hahn from Cherokee. Recently, there have been anywhere from 20 to 35 librarians attend the annual conference. So Iowans are well represented in the membership. So thank you to everybody who has joined. For those of you who aren't members yet, the dues are really reasonable. They start at $20. Besides attending conference at a lower rate, you get the benefit of a group of librarians who love to share and are always there for your questions. Members work in the same types of libraries that you do, and they deal with the same problems that you have. This next slide is going to talk a little bit about that community that ARSL provides. Since 2007, ARSL has been holding an annual conference around the country. We've been in Columbus, Sacramento, Gatlinburg, Denver, Frisco, Raleigh, Omaha, Tacoma, Little Rock, Fargo, St. George, Springfield, Illinois, Burlington, Reno, Chattanooga, Wichita, and Massachusetts, also Springfield. These conferences are made for small and rural librarians. They are mostly practical, hands-on sessions. They're ideas that you can take back and implement in your library. But they also include entertaining and inspirational sessions, as well as other ideas that will help take your library into the future. You can see from the comments on the screen, some of these are some that we've received over the last couple of years. 2 of the things that really come to my mind when I look at these comments are ARSL is relevant and ARSL is inspirational. And I think you can see that in those quotes. The conference typically lasts 2.5 days, normally starting with a pre-conference on Wednesday, then a social gathering that evening. Thursday morning, it starts off with a keynote speaker. Then you head into your days that are filled with over 50 breakout sessions. Last year, there were presentations on marketing, customer service, children's programming, cataloging, much more. The conference winds down with breakouts early Saturday morning, then finishing with a last keynote over brunch before everyone heads home. In the past, we have featured author lunches with Craig Johnson, Richard Paul Evans, William Kent Kruger, Sandra Boynton, and this year we heard from Celeste Ding. Registration costs are as reasonable as possible. They include 5 meals plus the reception, all in the cost of the registration. This year, I am pleased to announce that the State Library gave out 4 $1,500 grants for a librarian to attend. So now, let's hear from some of the Iowa librarians who attended in Springfield. And Joan, you are up first.
Hi, I'm Joan. I'm at the Eldora Public Library. It was my first time attending the conference, and I really hope to go back. The first program that I went to that really caught my attention was called Your Library, Small Towns, Bigfoot Legends, Using Local Lore to Inspire Programming. So this girl was really, really great. And she just said to go out of the box and get programs that will hook people in. She said, if you like it, I love it. The big why was to get people to come to your library. So I took that to heart. She said, do something local that would draw people in. So I had my son, he was in town. I threw a baby shower for him last weekend. So I said, hey, you're here. How would you like to do a program? He's like, sure. So I forgot to send this to Becky, but this is a picture of it. It says, from senior class trips to Sri Lanka in E&P Grad's Guide to World Travel. So it brought in former teachers of his. It brought in neighbors, people that hadn't seen him for a while. So many people came. And just because he was from Eldora, a lot of the kids, the parents and the teachers knew him. So it was like the familiarity that brought people to the library. So my take is just to get programs that people will come and want to see. So Jake talked for he was supposed to talk for 45 minutes. He talked for an hour and a half because they kept asking questions. So what I took from that is to just use local to get people to come to the library. I've had programs. Right now, my best time is Wednesdays at 10:30. That's when people come. I've got about 20 solid ladies that come every time. If you do a different time, they don't come. Some of them will say, have a program in the evening, I'll come. So what did I do? I had a program in the evening, 3 people came. So it's like you try and help everybody and, please everybody, but I'm just going to keep doing what works for the library. She also said she looked for weird things, and that's what draws people in. She found a ufologist, and then she would just giggle every time she said that word. So it was about a UFO people. Who doesn't want to know about UFOs is what she said. So she finds just weird topics and has people come. She had a festival with vendors and authors. So, that just spoke volumes to go to what the people want to see and what will bring people to your library. So that was my take from that program. Does anyone have any questions?
Thanks, Joan. And you guys can, was there a question? I'm sorry, I don't have the chat up, but we can always do questions at the end as well to make sure that we've got time for everybody in here. All right, then let's see who is next. And Jenny, I switched your 2 around. If you don't mind doing the choose your own adventure first, and then we'll do your other one later on in the presentation.
You bet. And sorry, of all the people we did not apparently share our slides. I have the slides and I am happy to email them to people if you are wanting a copy of the slides from this presentation. So I'm Jenny Garner. I'm with the North Liberty Library in North Liberty, Iowa. I've been a member of ARSL, not quite as long as Becky, but I think that I'm going to my 12th or 13th year of going to every conference. I would never miss one of these conferences. They are like coming home every year. It's the most welcoming association that I've ever belonged to. And the content at conference is so applicable to our libraries. It's just unbelievable. Sam and I presented, Sam Helmick from Iowa City Public Library. This was actually Sam's program, and they just asked me if I'd like to come along for the ride to present it. So we presented Intellectual Freedom, Choose Your Own Adventure, which was an interactive session. The slides are interactive. So we started off just kind of setting the stage with banned books and talking about the number of bans we've seen in Iowa and across the United States and comparing those, and talking about the fact that Iowa had the second most adverse library bills introduced in 2022 of any any state. So we're number 2 in not a great thing. We talked about ebooks versus print and the challenges of providing ebooks in our collections, and what the implications are for ebooks, along with finance and staff resources that we have in our libraries. And then we introduced some scenarios about interactive slides about book banning. And this was a ton of fun. So I just messed up my notes. Give me just a second. I had the other one first, so I got to go back to the end of that. So the first set of slides that we introduced was for a paleontologist whose name was Jean Yes. And Jean Yes, Dr. Jean Yes comes into the library to complain about outdated books in the dinosaur section of the library. And we wanted to use actual, more specifically, not something that could be controversial. So we didn't want to necessarily do a controversial topic when we did this, because we wanted to show that you're not always going to be dealing with something like that. You might just be dealing with someone who wants to vent about something that they see as a problem in your library. So then once we introduced Genius to the library world, or to the attendees of the library, we talked about what are the different ways you could address this this person's needs and how they're challenged to you. So we talked about, do you go straight to your policies and say, well, this is what our policy says? Do you immediately grab your reconsideration form if you have one and talk about and giving it to the parent to fill out right away without even, blinking an eye? Or do you take time to ask them about their concern and find out more? Then we encourage the attendees to choose chaos. So on the next slides, they get to choose different scenarios. So once they've chosen, we click the link and it takes us to another relevant slide that matches what they want to talk about. And then we just talked about it, like, how do we handle these situations when someone comes into our libraries? How do we make sure that we or our staff, if we're the only one, or our staff is trained to respond to these types of situations and ready for if people come in and do this? The second scenario was a little bit different. We talked about appreciative curiosity scripts, like helping your staff or yourself to understand how to be curious without being condescending, how to de-escalate the conversation and keep people from being angry by maintaining control, but keeping it on the, meeting people with kindness, and honoring our values and our First Amendment. And then we gave some tips for active listening. And we also gave some tips for getting out of the situation. One of the tips that Sam gave, that's one of my favorites, is to check your watch and extricate from the conversation. Sam says this works even if you don't actually have a watch on, you just look at your wrist. And then you say, well, I've got another meeting to be at, I'm going to have to step out. So then the other one is, of course, consulting yourself if you're the expert, or consulting your collection development folks in your library. The second scenario that we did was the farce of the First Amendment audit. So it was an influencer whose name is Fake News, fake, and it's KNUSE, so Fake News. And the influencer comes into the library to start filming, and people are complaining that this influencer is live streaming from the library and checking, and actually filming someone checking out and going up to people. And again, we went through, like, do we use curiosity? Do we confront this patron and potentially end up in a really bad situation that could go viral? Or do we go to our policies and just say, our policy says you can't be here? So we talked about how to handle the different situations and step through those. Again, it's an interactive, and so it's kind of fun to go through the different slides. We also introduced the Bill of Rights, which, if you know, was founded and created in Iowa by a Des Moines public librarian named Forrest Spalding back in 1938, and then adopted by ALA in 1939. So we have a great legacy of intellectual freedom dating back to that time. If I mentioned, this slide deck is available. If you guys want to, just let me know. I can put, just text me or send me a note in the chat and I'll make sure you get it. And also, I'm going to be back on in a little bit so I can talk more later, I guess. I think that's all I have for right now. Oh, I know what I was going to say. So Sam, they are working right now with Library Futures to potentially make this an actual interactive program where people can go online and actually interact with it. And I think it could be really cool.
That sounds like fun. Thanks, Jenny. Let's see. I think, Sam, you are up next.
Hi, so I loved this session from Judy Calhoun, And I just went because I'm always kind of curious, like, obviously in my role as coordinating the endorsement program, like what do new directors need to know and do is something I think quite a bit about. So I was sort of curious what Judy had to say. And I felt like she just did a really fun job of sort of making it realistic but fun. And so she had 12 tips in the course of this presentation, and I'm only going to share my favorite 4 with you, but then I did get permission to share her handout as well. So hang on and let me pull up my 4 tips here. So um, of the 12 that she had, my favorites were, first of all, to know where your funding comes from. So as a new director, you walk in, you've got a lot of different things flying at you, but to think through kind of knowing where the money comes from is going to go a long way into helping you understand your budget and your staff and a whole bunch of other things. So know where your money comes from. And then another one that she said that I thought is just a great tip for a new director was that your library is not a museum. And so basically, and you guys have maybe heard different state library people talk about this at one time or another, but museums serve a function in a community and libraries serve a function in a community. And those two functions are not necessarily the same. So those replica lampposts or chairs from the original post office or doll collection, you name it, is maybe your library might not be the best spot for it. And I know that many of our small towns are not in the luxury of having a city museum, but you're probably not doing those objects the biggest service you could be by sticking them in your collection and maybe not taking care of them the best you can anyway. And you really want your space to be clearly a library space designed for community engagement, your collection, that it's friendly and welcoming to your patrons and staff. One of the other tips that she talked about that I really liked was to make your building user friendly. And of course, this does have an Sorry, I just saw that I was muted there. I hope I hadn't been muted for a long time. This does have an accessibility component that you want your building to be, things like wide enough pathways for wheelchairs, functional and accessible signage is another piece of that. But beyond just an accessibility standpoint, that your building itself is friendly to anyone who might walk in. So this is clean spaces and comfortable spaces. This is friendly signs that are clear and make sense. And she brought up the idea of doing sort of hiring someone to be a secret shopper of sorts in your library. Maybe hiring is not the right word, but recruiting a secret shopper to come into your library and see, could I find could you find what you were looking for? Were the staff friendly and helpful? Was the environment pleasant? And maybe arrange that for a time when you're not in the library to see how your volunteers or other staffers uh, are perceived by your secret shopper. And particularly the signage piece I thought was good there. I feel like so often I go into libraries and it's just kind of sign overload. And now that we all have our plexiglass counters too, the plexiglass is just a great place to stick another couple signs. And they're usually for good reasons. The computers are down, they'll be back up at 11. This is a great program that's happening, but you probably want to think a little more carefully about sign overload. And then the last one, which of course is near and dear to my heart in the work that we've done here at the State Library over the last couple of years, is to create a building book. So hopefully if you're a new director, you inherited something like this, but I know that that's not often the case. A building book, basically a list of the things in the building and who to call if something goes wrong. And this might sound a lot like our disaster response toolkit, and you wouldn't be wrong about that. I'm going to put a link to that in the chat because we worked hard on it a couple years ago and it still gets a lot of great use. But to have a resource like that you begin to develop as a new library director, or that you update if you're new in this role. And even if you're not new in this role, eventually somebody new will follow you. So have that as a sort of pay it forward tool, was another one of her tips. So I'm going to put in the chat a link to the handout that she had. It has like 41 different tips on it, and some of them I can't heartily endorse, um, but most of them are pretty good. There's things on here like try not to take work home. Oh yes, we can all try this. There's one, librarians are like bartenders. Sometimes we just need to listen, but you also need to know when to shut them down. Attend ARSL is another one of Judy's tips. So let me get this link for you, and that'll come in the chat. And then she links off to yet another longer, like 20 some page document of a librarian who was retiring and reached out for advice for new directors. And so that's linked from there as well. But this is tips for new directors. So I thought it was a really great session, and I got a lot of great ideas, stuff I hope that we can turn into like a new director handbook sort of thing, maybe eventually, just some things that people want to be thinking about when they're new in a director role in the library.
Thanks, Sam. And we've been trying to put together a new director handbook since the day I started at the state library. So let's see who is up next. Dallas, if you want to talk to us about outreach and the program that you went to.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Can you guys all hear me okay? Yes. Okay.
Yep.
I see a couple heads nodding. So I did this in a little bit more professional way. I typed all this out. So I apologize if I just kind of read what I wrote. Otherwise, I'm a rambler and we would be here for 3 hours. But I did very much enjoy the breakout session, Bridging the Gap, Serving Beyond the Walls. This session resonated deeply with me as it focused on how libraries can reach out to community members who don't visit us. The core message was clear. It's not just about the books. It's about building connections and being present in our community. So there's a challenge in that because many people in our communities may not set foot in our library for various reasons. Maybe they're unaware of the resources that we offer, or perhaps they haven't visited the library in years, haven't even thought about it. And as librarians, we need to ask ourselves how we can effectively reach these individuals. We're sure not going to go knocking on their doors and drag them into the library, but the goal is to let them know that we are here, ready to serve their needs in meaningful ways. And to do that, we need to meet them where they are at. This session provided some examples of how libraries can do that. A lot of us already offer pickup and delivery services, but maybe you don't. And if you don't, it was suggested to start that. Or maybe you do, just make it more aware. Our community is an older community, so it will be beneficial to a lot of people. But I think people are hesitant to call. They think that they're bothering us or they're being an inconvenience, but we just need to let them know that we're not. And that is part of our service. That is a service that we offer. It was also discussed that, people come to the library for human connections. People come to pick out books, but sometimes they're just a lonely individual who just needs someone to talk to. Now, while we can't be counselors and we can't be bartenders, we can create an environment where individuals feel comfortable and valued. For instance, consider a regular visitor, Betty Lou, who comes in for books, but she may need that social interaction more than anything. We're librarians, we're friendly, open people, but if we're busy, are we that? Are we we have deadlines or papers, it's the end of the month. Are we still that same warm, open person to that individual who may use the excuse that they come in for books, but they just really need, they're a single individual who lives by themselves. So we want to be open and available and friendly to everybody. My favorite one was we also in this session discussed starting initiatives like a school supply drop-off spot. And I plan to do this ourselves in our library this coming August. So in our working class town, families often struggle, especially during back to school season. By creating a space for people to donate extra supplies, we not only provide resources, but also foster a sense of community connection and support. So we throw it out there. Hey, if you want to pick up an extra set of pencils or erasers or folders, drop them off at the library, and we will then turn around and give those to the families in need, or tell the families, hey, if you need this stuff, come here. This is what it is. So we're helping everybody. We're allowing those who have the ability to donate, and allowing those who have the need to get it as a community resource. I love that one. I can't wait to try that one out. And then another simple yet powerful idea is to just leave a note in the books. Now, this doesn't reach the people who are not in our library, but we still can't forget about the people who are still coming in. And maybe us, for example, we have started to connect with our local nursing home in our community since the conference, and we'll stick notes in there, have a smiley face, just a drawn out smiley face, or have a great day, or great book you're reading, and things like that. So I loved this. We're an older community, and we tend to have, and a smaller community, and we tend to have the same people come in, and there are so many people that we're not reaching. So I had 4 or 5 pages of notes, and I tried to condense them down as much as possible. I likely probably missed a lot, but that's a good excuse for yourselves, hopefully, to attend an ARSL conference in the future. I hope to go back. But the session really emphasized the importance of simply starting. Not everything that we start, or every initiative, or every idea will work. It won't be good, but it doesn't mean you failed. It's just a learning opportunity. And the key to remember is that even if we help just one person, got one new person in the door, that's worth it. To me, that's worth the effort. But this session really reminded me of the profound impact that we have as librarians beyond just lending books. We're here to chat, we're here to talk, we're here to send faxes or help find jobs, or, do the book supply for the kids in the community. By being proactive and reaching out, we can build these connections, support our communities, and ensure everyone knows they have a spot in our library, no matter what their needs are. And if this was, out of all of the sessions, I think there were 14 that I went to. This one, I just left, and it had pulled at my heartstrings about the ability to be able to reach out to these people that we don't see every day. So it was wonderful. I loved it. And I'm going to continue to go through my notes and continue to try to take all those resources and ideas and suggestions and use them for us. And hopefully I gave you a couple ideas. I only touched on a few, but if you want more, please feel free to email me here at the Marcus Library, and I'll pass them on. So
great. Thank you very much, Dallas. You did a nice job of summarizing that one. I was in that one as well. It was really interesting to me. I went to a second one about outreach, and a lot of the messages overlapped, and some of them were different. So that was kind of interesting to see the different people's approach to outreach. All right, let's see who is up next. Lisa, if you want to talk to us a little bit about the Makerspace when you attended.
I would love to.
Thanks.
So I will pop in the chat again. I popped it in at the beginning, and I'll pop it in again when I'm done speaking here. But this Makers in the Library, I don't know if any of you saw this downloadable book that they provided for us, but it's amazing. So my favorite class in all the classes there was this, the Makers in the Library. It's a toolkit for building a community-driven makerspace. And it was first piloted by a bunch of California library staff got together and started to make this makerspace thing. And then they got some charter members, and then they did their inaugural ambassadors. And so they kind of spread out, across the states in putting out this makerspace stuff. So this is, I think, their second edition on this one. Yeah, second edition of this book. Anyway, it's about 150 pages plus a bunch of forms at the back. So it walks you through like everything. It has a welcome section, and it talks about what making is and what a maker mindset is, and it defines, what a makerspace could be, and they put it into like 5 different categories of that, which we'll touch on later. And then it has a listen and discover section about how to map out your maker ecosystem and to take stock of the library assets you have right now already in-house that you don't have to spend any money on to start your makerspace. And they always say to start slow and build as you go. And then they talk about learning with focus groups, which is interesting because I just went to a library space planning program. And one of the things they said about focus groups, which focus groups are great, but you have to realize that in a focus group of say 10 people or whatever, that you may have like 3 people who are outspoken, like say moi. And so you might have like 3 people who actually say anything in the whole meeting, and then everybody leaves and you think, okay, great. Well, that whole group, said, this, that, or the other thing. Well, actually 3 people said that. The other 7 didn't say a thing. And so you really have no idea what they know. And so in going even deeper from a focus group, you could do one-on-one interviews with people and really find out what each individual in that focus group, if you will, actually really thinks about whatever it is you're surveying. Okay, and defining a purpose and your target audience for whatever it is you're going to do in your makerspace or the things that you want to have in your makerspace. And then brainstorming and prototyping. So implementing whatever models you come up with. So let's quickly, let me get to the section that I want here really quickly. So under listen or under what defines a makerspace. There we go. Let's look at that one. And I'm going to tell you about the 4 different things that they talked about, because a makerspace can be whatever you want it to be. It said they had 5 different makerspaces for the makerspace ecosystem, plus whatever you come up with. So clearly, it's whatever you want it to be. Oh, it's not on that page. Okay. Oh, here we go. What defines a makerspace? So a multi-use space you could have, something where you use it for several different things. And they talked about that in our library space planning also, how you can use the same space for several different things at different times of the day, and to get things like desks that flip up and roll away, like we had in that particular building we were using that day, or carts and things that you can close up and kind of put up against the wall and use the space for something else. Like say you use children's, like I have a children's section that I'm going to do, and I do fun story times in it, and then over on the side, I'm going to have the makerspace things, and they'll kind of be put away and up against the wall unless somebody's there to pull it out and use it. We have the same thing in our craft area, where we just have a table up, and then we have all the craft supplies in shelving units or cupboards closed away. So it's not all out there and looking overwhelming, if you will. Anyway, and they talked about you having a multi-use space or a dedicated space or outreach and mobile units. So I guess a lot of people will do it. I know one of my friends, Dawn Miller down in Tabor, she takes maker things and STEM projects and things like that to the schools to do. And then at-home programs. So I guess they did a lot of that during COVID, even, make and take type of stuff. Where you could check out the bag, take it home, and make it at home. So I guess it's take and make, not make and take and make. And then community events where you can do makerspace things at different events in your community. And so I loved that they gave you everything you needed in the back of this thing. They have all different kinds of logs because we're a smaller library of 1,000 in our community. And so I kind of know the people that come here, what they want and what our community is like into. We're very much an art community here. But they have all kinds of cool things that you can use, like a prototype framework, and a participant feedback framework, an action plan, a maker activity plan. They have maker activity plan examples in here for you, logic models, and they do patron interview questions and peer observations and all kinds of things that you can do, especially if you're in a larger library where you have more staff than, say, like I do. So we have 3 people working and we equal 1.5 full-time people. So we don't have a whole lot of time for that kind of stuff. They even tell you how to do an elevator pitch for your makerspace, which of course we always talk about the library story, tell the library story and have a pitch. But so they talk about for just your makerspace even. Donation letters, they put a sample donation letter in there for you. So I strongly encourage you to download this this Makers in the Library handbook, if you will. And again, I will put that in the chat and see if it'll pop up again. Doop, boop. It is loading. And let me know if you guys see it in the chat here. It's 15.3 megabytes, so it's going to take a moment to load. Anyway, I am super excited about Makerspace. I just got a grant from Southwest Iowa's Grant Foundation, and we will be adding one of those $8,000 Makerspace carts that I didn't get in a STEM thing, and as well as a 3D printed. So we're pretty excited about that in our tiny little town.
Very cool. Thank
it's
you.
Not loaded yet. I'm working on it. Any questions while it's loading? It's almost done. No questions? Okay.
And
let me know if you see it
questions
once
at
it's
the end
loaded
as well. And I will grab that out of chat, Lisa, or I'll get it from you, and we will put it in the resource guide that we're putting together, because we've had so many things that have been put into chat there that I want to make sure those are all captured. So we'll have those all in a resource guide that will be in Workday Learning so that people can get access to those.
Who shall I send it to, you or Sam?
Go ahead and send it to me. I'll put it together.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see. Oh, really quick. I was going to just a really quick, something that I went to a makerspace program at ARSL that I thought was the most brilliant idea that came out of that was some state libraries, and we actually have our kits that we loan out. We'll loan out makerspace things, whether it's a 3D printer or whatever. And so what I suggest are the kits that Janae put together, like the magnetiles. And what libraries have done with that is they put it out, they have it on display, they let people use it, and then they say, oh, too bad, this is going away because we don't have the money to do it. We borrowed this and we don't have the money to do it. And what these libraries said is they heard over and over again, how much does it cost? I will donate and I will make sure that your library can get that. I just thought that was a brilliant way to, give people a little taste and let them get anxious for it and then take it away and then say, but if you give us some money, we can provide this for you for forever and it will be ours. So I thought that was a really cool thing that was done. All right, Jenny, I believe you are up next. And I think it was at the end of this one that you also wanted to talk about something else. Was it the Brooklyn project? Something?
This is the Brooklyn project. I mean, it's just part of it. I can just talk about it. Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
Thanks.
So I volunteered to do 2 of these because Becky said she was short on folks, so you get to hear me twice. So the Brooklyn Public Library Access in Practice, as a cardholder sign-up policies, was a study that they started. It was based on a study that they started in 2023. They launched research in how public libraries are structured to give patrons their sign-up policies, how they allow people to sign up for library cards. And they were, as far as they know, it's the first data of its kind to be collected. And their whole goal is advancing the right of our readers and the people who come in our libraries, their rights, and lowering the barriers to access. So this was super exciting to me from the get-go. As when I heard about it, they came to ARSL in 2023 and invited some folks, and I got to be one of those people. I was fortunate to get invited to be part of a focus group where they interviewed people about library card sign-up policies and how we handled that at our libraries. And then over the course of the next year, they surveyed over almost 2,000 libraries and took qualitative research from about 115 of those libraries and created a research project they did publish a study. That study is available. I just put it in the chat. About this with the highlights. If people want the raw data, I think Amy would be happy to give it to you. It's a lot. I don't think I would ever read it even, but the data is extremely interesting. They researched the highlights in areas of practice, just where libraries, there's a lot of agreement in how we handle our library cards across the country, but there's also a lot of outliers and people doing some different things. The ultimate goal is to come up with some best practices, or what we're calling good practices, because I think people feel like best practices. I mean, who gets to determine what that is? So just some suggestions for good practices for library cards. They ask questions like, what do you collect? What kind of information do you collect for a library account? They ask questions, do you request proof of address? Do you require ID to get a library card? Are you requiring a phone number? A lot. It was surprising to me how many people required a phone number in order to get a library card. They were asking if you collect gender data or don't collect gender data. They asked about non-resident library cards and access for non-residents, issuing temp cards, guest passes, and things like that. They asked about e-cards. Limiting youth access so all that information is in that study, and it's pretty interesting to read it. What youth can check out, if you are able to check out the same things as adults, if they have to have permission to get a library card. So after the focus group, I jumped on the opportunity to be part of a working group that included 30 librarians across the United States. We've had 6 meetings so far to discuss the key areas for policy and practice, including eligibility requirements, retention of data for privacy's sake, and digital access, youth access, language barriers, then just what information is collected, and then how we're training our staff to ensure that we're being consistent when we're providing someone a new library card. So we also talked about, during the session, they talked about combating old attitudes. One of the speakers was from Ohio, and he spoke about just like the generational differences that he found among staff and how they view card access. And some of them are just sort of like the idea of teaching accountability. Is that our responsibility, or is that our role? The idea of sort of the library versus the patrons when it comes to materials not being returned, and how we kind of get caught up in that. And just the challenges of how we kind of put ourselves against the patrons in some ways. And I say we as the collective, we, not necessarily us in this room. And I really liked it that Amy just stayed very neutral during the discussion. I think Amy and the Brooklyn Public Library have ultimate goals for what they want to do with this information and what they're hoping to do at their large system. I will tell you that from interacting with Amy and Nick, who's the director at Brooklyn, they really get small libraries. They understand, because they do have branches, but also they just really want involvement from us, which I thought was fantastic that they invited ARSL to be a part of this study. So the other panelist was from Massachusetts. Her system is 190 branches. So she's part of a working group that oversees 165 libraries with 190 branches and 900,000 users. And she discussed a lot about the data audit. So they were looking at what was being collected in their library over the last year as a result of the work that Brooklyn's been doing. They looked at what's required for being able to use the library. In order to use the library, what kind of stuff were they taking in? They went over the patron notes and stats field to see that there's some kind of personal data being included in those notes. And then they started looking at the collecting what they were also collecting for gender. They had a gender collection requirement. So they went back as a result of the work they were doing with Brooklyn and deleted that gender requirement from the ILS altogether. They removed all personally identifiable information, as much personally identifiable information as they could, including notes, including other fields, in order to protect patient privacy, because they're very concerned. And they say now when, not if, a breach could occur of their data. We know that breaches are happening. The Seattle Public Library had a ransomware deal not long ago and had to deal with that over the last couple of years. It was pretty terrible. So they've been looking at what information we're retaining. We're looking at what information, when should we take patrons out? What's the purpose of an expiration date in a patron record? And, some of us have requirements for that, and some of us don't, or some states don't have that requirement. They looked at what's the inactivity threshold. How long do you keep a patron in the system if they haven't been in the library for quite some time? And then how easily do we make it to allow patrons to come back and get a new card if we've already deleted them out? So they showed that when they took all that criteria out and purged that criteria, they were retaining better records for the patrons, and getting rid of a lot of messaging and notes that were included in the patron records. And they also talked about Brooklyn is really working to improve youth access. They launched new things such as, when they'll allow for someone to get a library card. Some of us in their state, it's 13. They have a requirement that anyone under 13 they have to be they have to follow the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. And part of that for them in New York is making sure that they have patron or parent permission. So then they looked at updating processes so their cards weren't restricted anymore, because they used to have a restricted juvenile card. They looked at having their expiration dates extended until they were 18, no matter when they got their card, so that they didn't have to re-up. They looked at having no address verifications for kids getting library cards because they don't always have ID, and introduced a preferred name field, which I really thought was cool. We do that now just by saying, what name do you like to be called? We'll put that in your record. But they also did mention in the thing that small and rural libraries can be more adept. Sometimes we can be a little bit more personal and personable, which I think they notice. So now Amy and her intern are working on this project, pulling together the information that's come out of those 6 working groups when we met for, an hour and a half to 2 hours at a time. And seeing where we have some likenesses that could make a framework to create a guide to reference for best practices or good practices around library access to library cards. So I'm excited. North Liberty has been asked as part of that study to share just information about our card sign-up practices. And I can tell you, we have removed barriers. We no longer require ID to get a library card at our library. We just do this crazy thing called radical trust. We assume people come in with good intent. So if they give us their library or their address, we assume it's okay and that they're not going to lie to us about where they live. We have not seen an increase in lost materials. We've been working on pulling some data for them through our collection person has been pulling some data. And actually what we're seeing is that we're cleaning up records a lot better now for lost materials and things now that we have some attention on it. But that has not spiked because we've stopped requiring ID. We don't have, overdue materials anymore. We also don't require kids to have parent permission to get a library card. They can just get a library card as long as they can tell us all the necessary information. So that is going to be part of, I think, their final report as a one-page paper in that. And they're just going to recommend standardization across the country. What can we do that doesn't fall within, within legal parameters? But the bottom line is the bottom thing we're going to have to do is make sure we're following the law, right, in every state. And some states are different. So we know that not every system is going to have not every state's going to have the same look, but we're trying to get to that place where we're removing as many barriers as we can to access. And that's that one.
Thanks, Jenny. That's really interesting to me. I mean, how many times have we seen on Library Talk, or have people, contacted me and said, what should I be asking on a registration card? And I love that idea of sort of a national kind of standard. This is kind of the base. You may need to make some adjustments based, like you said, on the legal requirements in your state, but it also, I think, helps patrons as they move from library to library to know what's going to be expected. I really like that. And based in data. How cool is that? I love it. All right, thank you. Let's see. Kaylee, you are up next.
All right. Well,
Thanks.
this was my first attendance at an ARSL conference. I did do the online conference last year. And when I found out that it was going to be in Massachusetts this year, I said, I really want to go to this. And so I applied for the grant, got the grant, and got to go. And being down where I am, Southeast Iowa, I have friends who are library directors, but it can often be, it can be secluded and you can feel like you're alone. You don't know what you're doing quite sometimes, and you're not sure who to reach out to. But getting to go to this conference and meeting the librarians and staying in a house with people, I maybe knew one person in the house I was staying in, but I left with 6 other friends. And it's just a great way to get ideas and build community, and then meet the other Iowa librarians and talk to them about their libraries and what they're doing. But the one I'm talking about that really hit me, because we just went through a budget cut with our county. They cut about, not just us, but also the other Henry County libraries. The county cut us, I would say, close to half, or if not half, of what we usually get from them. We would get about $24,000. We're only getting $11,000 from them. 11,000 some this year from them. But that really, really hit us. And it was right before our new budget took effect. So we had already done the budget, and they just said, all right, here's a letter, we're cutting your budget. No warning. And so doing less with less really struck home with me. And one of the quotes that I took from it that I later found out was a Taylor Swift quote, but it still resonates, is, I cry a lot, but I'm so productive. And it's basically just, I'm doing so many things, but I'm crying, but I'm still productive. But we don't need to be doing so much when our budget has been cut. We need to be scaling back. And one of the things we did with our scaling back, which has been kind of hurting, is we didn't fill an open position, and I overtook that and my hours changed. So there's a lot of things going on there. And lack of funding, as Mandy put in her presentation, can lead to burnout and low pay. Staff is already low paid, but without the funding that's there, how are you going to give raises? How are you going to do anything else? And it's going to be still at that low pay, we know, as librarians. And it's often a result of lack of community support, and community maybe not understanding what goes on behind the scenes, or they're expecting you to do more, but they don't realize you might not have the staff to do what you need to do. And lack of support from elected officials. And things cost money, and it's necessary for us to acknowledge this. So if we have something we want to do and it costs money, we might have to say, well, we'll table that for next time if we have more funds. Because she maps out what it takes to do a free program, which is, you have staff time, you may need to have multiple people, you need to have the people with expertise to do the program. You're often buying supplies, you might not have enough money, you might be, sometimes I will buy things for the library out of my own money. And I know that's something we probably shouldn't be doing, but you've got books and materials, you've got facilities and utilities. If you're paying for that, if you're not in a building run by the city, if you're paying for, you have to keep the lights on. And marketing, if you're doing flyers and things like that, that also takes staff time. And if you have shipping costs, interlibrary loan costs, or even consortium fees, that can also take your projects down. And as always, more staff time. But one of the things that really stuck with me was she asked, how many of you take your paid time off that you receive? And, you know, a few people raised their hands, and she said, how many of you are using your paid time off for this conference? And I sheepishly raised my hand because I don't take a lot of paid time off. And somebody yelled from the audience to everyone, take your time off. Make sure you're not getting burnout because you have less budget, but take the time off to heal and figure out things, but also know that you might need to scale some things back. So that's what I took from that webinar, or that conference breakout.
Thank you, Kaylee. Lots of wisdom there, I think.
Yes.
That was a good one. All right. And Joan, Joan, you can talk about this in a sec, but this picture that's on here is actually from her library, not from the presentation that she went to. And Joan, I've got the second picture that you sent on the next slide. So tell me when you want to move to that one, and I'll let people see that one as well. So take it away. You are muted, Joan.
All right, unmuted. I was just walking through the exhibitor hall and I stumbled upon this breakout, and I know my granddaughter has one, so I thought I'm just going to kind of see what they have to say. They sold me, and I thought, how am I going to get to do this? Just like Kaylee, budgets are cut, and I'm like, there's no way my library can afford this. So I presented it to my friends group, and I'm like, I would really like to have this. I think it would benefit the community. They jumped right on it, and I am now, I have 3 Tony boxes. They cost about $100 each, but I joined some Tony group that Taylor from the library in Wolford, she was a remarkable help. She showed me how to sign up for this Tony thing, so I got a discount. So I got the Tony box for $80. The Tonys are like $20 ish. I got some of them for $12.99. So I was able to get, there's some on the other side of that slide. I think I have about 20 little Tonys. And then I have 3 Tony boxes. One woman in my friends group decided to buy 2 of the Tonys. So that's why I have 3. So it's a good thing to have. They go out like hotcakes. They're very popular. I have this down here. I put it in a box like this. And then I have the instructions on there. This is, if you don't know what a Tony box, this is a little Tony box. And you push it and you turn it on. I'm just going to pick one up. Here's Olaf. Then you just stick the little guy on there. And it's going to start playing here in a second, maybe. So little kids can do this themselves. I mean, it's amazing. It's nice to open. We don't want to hear Olaf because we'll keep singing him. But like 1-year-olds up to 5-year-olds, they can do it themselves. So like, oh yeah, there's the other slide. So I just made this little board. We laminated everything. We keep everything in the back just for safety reasons. They just click off whatever Tony box they want. I let them take 2 Tony boxes at a time. There is one that came with it. So they get that little bear guy. He's a story time. So they do get 3. And I let them check it out for a week. Because they're so expensive, and on the recommendation from Taylor at Wolford Library, I do charge $3 a day late fee per item. And I have a parent sign that they know they're responsible for this, because we're a fine-free library. I don't charge for anything overdue. But this, I just felt like I needed to make people responsible to bring them back. I kind of think it's one of the best things I've done lately. And like I said, the library budget didn't have to pay for it, but will benefit my patrons. Cataloging, that took a lot of work. it was worth it once it was done. Wolfworth Library, she sent me copies of what she had. Luckily, she's on Apollo as well. So a lot of copy and pasting, and then I kind of got the gist of it. So I was able to kind of whip through. The last 15 were easier than the first like 10, but anyway, it was good. So if you have money in your budget, I mean, I think it's a good thing. My granddaughter lives in Grimes, and which is a fantastic library. And my daughter-in-law said the Tonys are gone quite often. So that's why I decided just to do the 1 week. I did have one mom get her Tony box. 3 days later, she came in and said, I'm still in my week. Can I swap them out? And I said, absolutely. And I do have some people that do own Tony boxes, so they can just check out the figures. So like I said, this was an accidental program that I attended, and I was glad that I did. So that's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you. I just thought that is such a cool idea. I'd not heard of it before. I was at a county meeting and they were talking about it. I'm like, that sounds really cool. One of my favorite library stories that I tell people all the time is, let's see, I can go back and put myself back on camera here because I am up next. I had a bunch of preschoolers in the library doing a tour, and I talked to them about, do you get to keep the materials that you get from the library, or do you have to bring them back? Yeah, they all knew they had to bring them back. And one of them said, it's a sharing place. And I love that description of a library as a sharing place. And I think it brings in all the things that you guys have talked about today, whether it's, we're not just sharing books. We're sharing Tony boxes because they're expensive. We're doing makerspace things that we're sharing. We've got a library of things that we're sharing. I just think there's such a great lesson in that, that little kid kind of said to me. So I goofed when I set this thing up. So I'm going to stop sharing for the moment and bring up, I attended a session from the Library of Congress, and it made me want to go to work there. The stuff that they do is so fun and so incredible. So mine doesn't have near as much information as some of the sessions that you guys heard. Mine is kind of more some of the fun stuff that I would love to see you guys kind of explore. Let me share now and share sound because that's what I forgot to do last time. All right, so start at loclibraryofcongress.gov. And the best way, I'm going to show you like 3 things out of 2,000 that is out here that you can sort of explore.
Hey, Becky,
so just
Becky, we're just seeing the Tony slide and like your view, maybe.
All right, hang on. I bet it's because I'm. All right, let's try this. Thank you for interrupting me, Jenny. So I got it. Now do you see it? Or is it still the other one? You're muted.
Now we're seeing your state library screen.
Oh, for
I think we were just seeing presenter view before, and it was on the Tony still.
Let's try one more time here. Screen 1. All right, now, woohoo! Thank you. Seriously, I practiced this ahead of time and still forgot to do it right. So loc.gov for Library of Congress. There's a couple of things that I want to just sort of introduce you to on here that she talked about that I thought are sort of interesting. If you scroll down on this one, they have this section called Ask a Librarian. It works the same way that anybody's Ask a Librarian does. You can write in and just, ask whatever your question is, anybody across the country. What I like about this is they have that Ask a Specialist. I'm going to go ahead and make this a little bit bigger here. So you can, these are all the specialties that they have folks that are available to chat with you or answer emails. So they've got somebody whose job it is to know more about newspapers, periodicals, and comic books. So anybody in the country can write and get information about that from these specialists. They also have just sort of the generic, if you just need to ask a general question, and then they've got sort of the FAQ. The other one that I want to show you that I thought was kind of fun, over here on the right, they have resource guides that they have put together. So they have gathered information from a variety of sources and put them together into these research guides, and it takes just a second to load. I can't remember what I saw. There's a, around a couple hundred, I think, of these different topics that you can look at through the research guides. And I want to just show you one that I thought was really fun. So 83 subjects that they have. The one that I just sort of explored just out of the blue that I just thought was hysterical, all the way down, you go to health and medicine. There are 18 different health and medicine resource guides. So the one that sort of struck my fancy is this one called, let's see, where did it go? I wrote it down so I didn't forget. Exercise. Here we go. Exercise tips for women, 1902 to 1921. So when I click on that, it gives me just sort of a background, and then they put together this little timeline. So in August of 1902, the latest exercise fad comes in the form of barrel rolling, using a barrel for fitness purposes, all the way up to October of 1912, Billy Burke tells women to get slim by doing exercises that stretch and wring the liver. I mean, just these articles that came out of magazines. When you click in the middle of their description, this read more about it, you can actually see the articles that they have pulled these images and this information from. So you can look at how to have a figure like mine from the South Bend News in 1921. So just what a fun way. I think of somebody who's writing a book that's set in 1921 that wants to add a little thing about what the housewife did during that time, or what they were teaching their kids in school to stay trim and fit. So think about going back and giving them access to some of these images as well as articles that are out there. I just thought that was really fun to do. The other one, let's see, that I want to go back. In this, the other thing that they have, let's one back farther here. Down at the bottom of this main page, they have these collections called Free to Use and Reuse. This one is just a whole bunch of images about walking. And the fact is they have cleared the rights for all of these. So if you're putting together a slideshow for the TV on the back of your thing that's advertising things, or you're making a flyer, or you're doing some kind of PowerPoint presentation, all of the collections, all of the pictures in all of the collections that they have here are free to use. So you can grab any of these and know that you're safe in using copyright with some of these. I just thought this one in walking was really fun, from the different ages, to the little guy with polio, to the fun picture here. What they say, President Harry Truman walking with his cane. So that's also right there on that front page, just a whole series of those. The other one that I kind of wanted to show you is this digital collections. And again, hundreds and hundreds of digital collections. Up in the top here, they have some of the ones that they're featuring. And so I've actually gone through and did a couple that I want to highlight on that one. Let's see. So cities and towns, and this is a collection of worldwide cities and towns that they have put together. So you can refine your search. We're going to look at that on another screen in a second here. You can refine your search, or you can search this collection. So I decided to see if they had any pictures about Clinton. No, actually, I didn't want to do Clinton. I wanted to DeWitt. I hit that, and yes, indeed, they have a bird's eye view of the city of DeWitt in Clinton County, Iowa, from 1868. You can look at the enlarged photo. You can zoom in. I always zoom out instead of in. I really wanted to find the address of the library and show a picture of that, but I couldn't find the right street, so I'm not sure. I'm sure somebody from DeWitt could look at this and figure out, because this has got to be sort of that downtown area. So, show patrons some of this cool stuff that's up here. I keep thinking this would be a really fun, easy to do program for you or your staff to go out and show folks what's available on this website and pull up some of these fun things about your community. Or there may be information here about people from your community, because there's just tons and tons of things. So now I want to go back to just the plain digital collections. Let's do this. and do a little bit of refining over here on the left. Many of you have probably been in workshops with me before. I'm a drama major and I do a lot of community theater. I do makeup and hair for a lot of those, as well as costumes occasionally too. So they actually have 107 different digital collections that have to do with performing arts. And I want to just show you a couple of these. Let's see if I've got the right one. They have this collection down here that was done by the Center for Applied Linguistics. When I look at the items, they've got 500 items that's in that, and they have recordings of people. This one I thought was just sort of fun, and hopefully if I did this right, you're actually going to be able to hear it. Oop, pull that up a little bit. Amelia Earhart in a speech that she did.
This modern world of science and invention is of particular interest to women, for the lives of women have been more affected by its new horizons than those of any other group.
I just thought that was so cool to hear that kind of a quote in her own voice. And the other one that I have been interested in, again, because of my theater background, they have put together samples of people with different dialects from across the United States. So you've got a community theater, and they're doing a show from South Carolina, and you want to hear, let's see, I found a good section about here, I think it was. So this is a 43-year-old woman from Charleston, South Carolina.
I was born in Calhoun County, South Carolina, 43 years ago, and have lived here all my life. I shall recite Song of the Chattahoochee by Sidney Lanier. Out of the hills of Habersham, down the valleys of Hall, I hurry a man to reach the plain.
I'm just fascinated with this stuff. This is a rabbit hole. I could spend the next 3 years just exploring some of the things that are on here. The last one, though, that I do want to show you, how am I doing on my time? Oh, of course I'm over. Sam's not here. I can't get in trouble for it. Let's see. The other one that I wanted to show you is this. Well, back one more. Up here on some of these, they have, where did they go? Two things that I wanted to show you here. One is this National Photo Company collection. And again, most of these are able to be used. You can go in there and search. I think I did a search on Iowa when I clicked that one. They've got, you can sort these photos by location. And for whatever reason, you have to do it alphabetically. I thought that was a little goofy. And they have 5 pictures in this particular collection from Iowa. And again, this one was 1920, an Army essay contest. I'm presuming this was the winners of the essay contest. Why that one's not coming up, I'm not sure. I've used these other ones. The sacking machine I did. We can view the enlarged. This is from Mason City in somewhere between 1910 and 1920, and they were filling, making the sacks and then filling them with cement. Just these fascinating pictures that are out there. So that is the end of mine. Now let's see if I can actually get this to go right and get the presentation back up. All right, so are you guys seeing the presentation now? Woohoo! All right. So here is the last little bit of this. So I am excited to tell everybody that in fall of 2025, the conference is going to be held in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm hoping that a lot of people can join us for what I'm sure is going to be 3 really great days of fun and education. ARSL has done a little bit of digging through some of their data, and the last time I looked, over 50% of the attendees are new every single year. So everybody does their best to make first timers feel at home. And I think some of these guys can attribute to that. There's always people there helping you if you're a first timer. Since many of the members can't afford to travel very often, the conference is moved around the US in order to make it close to a wide variety of members. So I'm telling you all, start thinking about your budget and be sure to include money for this conference. And I hope that we can see you guys in New Mexico in the fall of 2025. And here's a picture, oh nuts, that did not scale very well, of those of us who were in attendance. I think we had only 1 or 2 people who weren't able to do that. This was actually at the Dr. Seuss Museum, and the book that's behind us there is Oh, the Places You'll Go. We thought that was really appropriate for this group of traveling librarians. So this is all the folks from Iowa that attended the conference. Since we do have a little bit of time left, usually I tell my panelists to really kind of stick to what you learned, something that you actually went to. But since we've got a little time, if anybody would like to talk about your overall impressions about the conference, or about the people that you met, or about the organization as a whole, we'd love to hear from you guys since we've got a few minutes. Anybody want to sort of talk about the conference as a whole? I know, Kaylee, you did a little bit.
I did. It was a wonderful conference, like I said, to just network and meet people and leaving with friendships that'll last a long time.
I don't remember. Oh, go ahead, Dallas.
Oh, no.
No, you
Okay,
go.
I just wanted to go a little bit off of Kaylee's. I learned so much at the breakout sessions, and I repeated this to everybody, and even after I came back, it was talking to the individuals before the sessions and after the sessions and during the lunches and walking to the events and things like that, that I learned so much more. So I don't want to dissuade anybody, because obviously the breakout sessions were amazing, but the added benefit of everything that I learned from just the communication of like-minded people. So that really stood out for me.
I agree. It was fabulous. The things that you learn when you're talking to other librarians and you're like, what? I didn't know that. And then you get all these cool things that you can go back into at your library.
You're muted, Joan.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with all that. I came back and told my board how great it was, and I'd like to put it in the budget. And they looked at me and said, with budget cuts, maybe every other year, I'm going to do my best to see if I can sway that so I can go back next year.
Cool.
I was just gonna say, I don't know if you mentioned the dine arounds, but they do. That was one of my first the first year I went. They have dine arounds where you can sign up to go to. They do about 8 different restaurants that you can choose from, and someone leads that, and it's just an opportunity to network and talk to people. It's on your own, obviously, for paying for it, but it just gives you one more chance to both see some of the local sites and get to meet new people. I have friends that I met at dine arounds that I've had since the beginning, that I text with almost daily, if not daily, who I look forward to seeing every year, which is why I said it's like coming home. So I think that it's just the experience of how warm everyone is, I think, is one of the true great things about it. And they do buddies. They do conference buddies. So if you're new and you want, there are some of us who've been there that sign up for a conference with conference buddies, so that you don't have to go it alone. They'll meet you for lunch or, coffee or whatever. And so you have somebody to look to if you have questions or need help.
Cool. Thank you. The other thing I will say, we hope as a state library to be able to do grants again next year. And I did forget to mention that the money that we gave this year, what we've done in the past is $6,000. Typically it's $1,000 so that we can have 6 folks go, but because it was in the Northeast, it was so expensive this year that we just didn't feel like $1,000 was going to go far enough, and people wouldn't be able to make up that difference. So we ended up only doing 4. So hopefully, depending, once we see how much it's going to cost over next year, we hope to be able to do that. And that money that we give out actually comes from the Institute for Museum and Library Services. We got the money from IMLS, and we distribute that to the librarians so that they have an opportunity to do this. So we hope to keep doing that in the future with that money that we get from IMLS. And I think I have one last slide. So I just want to say thank you to our panelists. I think you heard a really good mix of what they heard while they were there. I really liked how so many of them, of the panelists, talked about how they're using it. I mean, people came back and instituted this stuff immediately. I mean, this conference was over in the middle of September, and we have people who are seeing benefits from it already. And I think you also heard some of their enthusiasm, both for the organization and for the conference. They all did a really good job of summarizing a 1-hour presentation into just 5 or 6 minutes. So thank you guys for being here, for saying yes when we asked for volunteers. And if anybody's got any questions, I'll ask the panelists to hang out for just a minute or two. We can do it either through chat. Oh yeah, we have to do it through chat because we don't have mics for audience at this point. Otherwise, let's see, I will open up the chat so that I'm not missing anything. Oh, great question, Brenda. Thank you, Kaylee, for answering. That's really cool. All right, if nobody has any questions, I will go ahead and I hope it's still recording. It didn't leave when Sam left. But it will be recorded and put sometime within the next week or so into Workday Learn, so you'll be able to go back and get it. And we will have the resource list available with all of the information that people put in the chat. All right, thank you guys. I am going to save my chat to make sure I get it. And we will see you all